In 1986, we were faced a drug crisis in America. There was the arrival of a new narcotic. It was called crack cocaine. It was dirt cheap, very addictive, destroyed fetuses in the womb. I was a member of the House of Representatives. We got the news that a famous basketball player from University of Maryland, Lynn Bias, died from an overdose. It was time to act. It was time to do something decisive. It was time to create a disincentive for the sale of crack cocaine in America. And boy, did we. We changed the sentencing guidelines for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine to 100 to 1. 100 to 1. And boy, did it work. In driving up the prison population, we drove it up by 500%, just a short period of time. Primarily African Americans, but others too. And the sentences were huge. One individual in Chicago, never once spent a day in jail, 3 strikes you're out on crack cocaine, life imprisonment. That was his sentence, life imprisonment at age 22. And what we found it was interesting that we ought to reflect on today. By really getting tough, I mean, we were all hard on crime when it came to crack cocaine, and I voted for it. The use of illegal drugs after that increased. The availability of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine increased, and recidivism rates for drug offenders did not decline. There was something missing in our calculation about how to end that drug problem, something dramatic that was missing. Now we have a new drug problem, and it is real, and you know it's real. I've been all over the state of Illinois. There is no county too rural or small, there's no suburb too wealthy to avoid the opioid epidemic. And with fentanyl laced in, it is deadly, absolutely deadly. I've never heard anyone say that they can look at a pill and determine whether fentanyl is included.
Right.
They can't. So now we're being asked to dramatically increase the criminal penalties for fentanyl. So what lesson have we learned since 1986 that makes us go down this path again?
Would you like me to begin,
Sure.
Senator? I guess the way I'd start is by saying we've never seen anything like fentanyl before. This is a new level of deadliness, and it only takes 2 milligrams to kill somebody. There have been some adjustments to the crack cocaine ratio. Those are the result of
By bill.
Yes, sir. And those are the result of the hard work that you're all doing, and the tough political compromises and that you have to make. But just speaking to fentanyl, I don't want to say that I have perfect historical perspective. I know some of you have much more than me, but I don't believe we've ever seen anything like it.
Can I go to the point that Senator Kennedy raised? The DEA tells us they have not found a single illicit fentanyl lab operating in the United States. So they're being made somewhere else. You mentioned Mexico and China. Perhaps they're the places. And we also, all of us concede, we can't look at a pill and tell whether fentanyl is included. The way I read this bill is even a trace amount of fentanyl would subject you to the heightened penalties, sentencing that's involved here with or without knowledge. Is that correct?
So I actually have not read the particular, I'm not familiar with the intricacies of every bill that is being discussed. What I can tell you is that 40 grams does not track the realities, the 40-gram threshold does not track the realities on the ground. And I'm suggesting that 20,000 lethal doses is too many to require before you can bring a charge that gets you more than a 6 to 12-month sentence, which is the hypothetical that I posited.
If I read the bill correctly, and it's just been submitted to us recently here, if you had, under current law, current law says any detectable amount of fentanyl whatsoever triggers a mandatory minimum. Minimum of 5-year mandatory minimum sentence up to 40 years in prison. Person has a prior drug offense, mandatory 10 years in prison up to life. That's current law.
I'm not looking at the document, Senator, but if you're reading the current law, I trust that you're reading it correctly. Yes. So 40 grams is the mandatory minimum for a mixture and substance containing a detectable amount of fentanyl up to life is the penalty range. is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is we currently have some pretty stiff penalties and mandatory minimums that apply to this situation. It is a horrible, frightening situation. We can start at the top and ask why pharma has to produce 14 billion opioid pills a year for the United States, approved, as Senator Kennedy and I know, by the Drug Enforcement Administration. 14 billion is enough for every adult in America to have a 3-week prescription of opioids. Okay, let's start there. What is this all about? Secondly, who's writing the scripts that are getting these opioid pills into the hands of others? Now, I'm at the earliest stages here of opioid pills moving in our economy, but they're moving in a massive fashion, mainly with the approval of the federal government. I'm all against what's happening here at opioid crisis, and fentanyl included, but let's do this in a smart manner. Let's do it in a thoughtful way. Let's learn from what we've done in the past that didn't work. And when we tried to sentence our way out of a drug crisis in 1986, it failed. We've got to be better this time.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the Senator to repeat that statistic about the DEA?
The Drug Enforcement Administration has the authority to give to pharmaceutical companies in the United States the approval for their request for production of opioid pills each year. The Drug Enforcement Administration. And pharma produces 14 billion pills. Senator Kennedy and I have a bill that says, open your eyes at DEA and look at what you're doing to America. So I'm all for going after fentanyl, pharma, all of the above. But when it comes to sentencing, we can look at a life experience here. Getting tough and out trying to sentence our way out of this didn't work worth a damn when it came to crack cocaine.